Hey, everybody. Bethany Dotson, relationship coach and trauma coach. I'm also a yoga therapist, going live with you today to talk to you about how you can date up after divorce or toxic relationship. This is for you if you are, a strong, goal-oriented professional woman and you have found yourself on the tail end of a divorce or the tail end of a toxic relationship. Maybe you have dabbled in dating, but you still find that you are getting yourself into, not ideal situations. You're still kind of running into unavailable partners, things like that. So I want to say everybody that I've worked with, everybody that I talk to has the intention of dating up after their last partner. I think we all want to date up after our last partner. But what the reality shows, at least in my experience and my work, is that we often tend to date neutral, meaning we tend to repeat a pattern, same pattern, but just a different person, different face that fits that role. Or in some instances, I talk to a lot of women, and this was my case personally as well, who date down, meaning they attract an even more narcissistic, more pathological, more manipulative person than the one before. So the cycle can get tighter and get worse. And I want to talk about, why this happens, why you find yourself in that quicksand, and then what needs to happen in order to truly date up and change from the inside out. So, a really common thing that I run into in my work is that I talk to a lot of women. They want to fix themselves. They realize there's a problem. They get into therapy. They might not do as much research as they could be on healing methods. They try a lot of Reiki. They do, different dating columns and dating advice from different experts in the relationship field. And they try to apply this in their life. They go to therapy, they talk it out, they vent, but they don't ever actually make a lot of leeway, and they find themselves frustratingly repeating the same thing. And when they find that they're repeating the same thing, in spite of all the work that they've done on themselves, it further fuels and reinforces negative feelings. And negative feelings and beliefs like there's something wrong with me. Why can't I get this right? Maybe I am broken. I don't know. It creates and breeds this great sense of mistrust within herself. And so this is a really common loop that I find a lot of women get stuck in. And they have well intentions. They have, they want to do the right thing, but they tend to keep getting stuck dating neutral or dating down in some cases. So the biggest reason why this happens is that the majority of the time, in some way, you are taking the emotions that you felt in a bad relationship or a bad marriage with you into your future. And you might be like, well, we broke up a long time ago, or we got a divorce, it's over, it's done in the past. But what tends to happen is, and this is going to be especially true if you have had, an emotionally abusive relationship, some kind of, toxic relationship. When we're in these dynamics, our bodies and our emotions reset to a new emotional home, as I call it. So rather than living in security and peace and comfort and joy and optimism and gratitude and abundance and all these wonderful feelings, we tend to live in worry. We live in stress. We live in anxiety. I think everybody that I've worked with has come to me, and in some way or another, when we first started our work together, they were suffering from panic attacks, and they'd left the relationship years ago. Depression. You tend to take the same, those emotions, the low level emotions that you feel in a toxic relationship, even when you exit, you tend to still live in those places in your everyday life, even though you're physically removed from the relationship. emotionally you are still the same. And it might not be as severe as it was in the relationship, but you still have elements of what if it happens again? You still may be holding on to anger or resentment. You still may be fearful of that you can't trust yourself, fearful of other people's intentions. You may, try dating from this place emotionally and then find that you get someone who ghosts you. You find someone that you really, really are into, but then they don't want a commitment. They don't want a relationship. They don't want the same thing as you, and then you feel more disappointment and you feel more hurt, and then again it creates this loop. So the biggest thing that I find is that when you're stuck in this trap, this cycle, it's because on some level within you, you are not already feeling the qualities that you want in a partner. I listened to an amazing podcast this past weekend, and by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm a huge Dr. Joe fan. I do a lot of his trainings. I use a lot of his work in my own work. But one of the things that he said, if you want a partner who's kind and respectful, who cherishes you, who is patient with you, who loves you unconditionally, are you being those things to yourself? And 9 times out of 10, when we exit a heartbreaking situation, when we exit a marriage, when we exit a dysfunctional relationship, it's quite likely you are not embodying the qualities and the feelings that you ultimately want in a healthy relationship. And so we carry these lingering feelings of stress, anxiety, mistrust, walking on eggshells, jadedness. A lot of people I talk to will, kind of chuckle and laugh off. Yeah, I've just got a broken picker. It's been that way my whole life. And, kind of make a joke or attempt to make light at a really heartbreaking situation. So you're ultimately bringing emotions from your past into your future. And a lot of the times, these emotions that you feel, stress, anxiety, mistrust, there aren't any good men. And sometimes you don't wake up and, say to yourself, I don't trust myself. Or you don't wake up in the morning and say, maybe you do, I'm anxious. A lot of the times this shows up as, I'm too old. Nobody's going to want me. There are no good men online. That is the biggest, this is probably one of the biggest ones I hear all the time. It's simply not true. I've got too much baggage. I'm not sure who would want me after learning of all the things that I've been through. There are all of these things that we carry with us that we give our energy to, and we give in many, many ways our power away too. So you can, and this is why I see a lot of people who go to talk therapy and go to, watch a lot of YouTube videos. And one of the biggest downsides of talk therapy that I found in my experience is that you tend to just vent and retell your story again and again and again. And the more you retell your story, the more feelings you feel that are associated with that story in the past. And so you're just continuing to fire and wire and program those same negative emotions that you felt in your past relationship or your past marriage. And you're never creating new emotions. And this becomes such an ingrained habit that you wake up and stress is just who you are. Feeling overwhelmed is just who you are. Feeling like you're always saying yes and people pleasing is just who you are. Not ever getting your boundaries met and then feeling resentful and disconnected in relationship just becomes like the thing that you do. And it becomes an automatic habit. Your body memorizes these responses. Your subconscious memorizes these responses. And your body and your subconscious mind, the feelings in your subconscious mind, make up, it's said, up to 97% of what you receive on the outside in your life. It all begins with how you're thinking and feeling. And if you've been thinking and feeling stress, There aren't any good men out there. Who's going to want me? Will I ever meet anybody ever again? What's going to happen? Men suck. I once talked to someone, and bless her heart, but her belief was that all men are idiots. It didn't matter if they had a great degree. It didn't matter if they were nice people, but her belief was all men are idiots. And guess what? All of her dating situations, all of her relationships were horrible because on some level, she's participating in that outcome. So the biggest way that you can keep yourself stuck is by replaying the thoughts and the feelings, retelling your story. I talked to a lot of people who've been in an unhealthy relationship, and years later, they continue to tell the same story. My ex did this, my ex did that. And it becomes an unconscious habit that they're just habituated. They're just used to doing it, oftentimes because they receive some kind of positive feedback, some kind of sympathy. So their body just knows how to do that. Their subconscious mind, they just do it. It becomes a habit. And the biggest thing in dating up is learning to create better habits with your feelings and your emotions, learning emotional regulation, emotional control. This is a huge component of the work that I do with my clients who've experienced narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, who have CPTSD, who have a mountain of trust issues, is learning to help them gain control over their emotions so that their emotions don't control them. And like I say, get in the driver's seat of their car and go speeding down the highway and lead them into another toxic situation. So learning to program in healthier emotions and make those your habit. A lot of people will become so meh or apathetic or just kind of like stuck in this malaise. I call this post-toxic relationship purgatory. When they exit, an unhealthy situation, they never really fully bounce back fully. And a lot of this is a trauma response. Their brains have been kind of altered a little bit from the psychological abuse, the emotional abuse, and their bodies have also developed a response to that, an unhealthy stress response. So they tend to just be apathetic. And it's very, so much so that they don't even it's like a fish in water. A fish doesn't know that he's in water. He just is. This is how you can become if you're not fully aware and changing your emotional home. And this is something, again, that I help my clients do, especially when they've been stuck for a number of months or years after exiting a toxic situation. So learning to change that. And the method that I use in my own work is a combination of somatic work. So I do yoga therapy, mind-body therapy, movement therapy. This is an evidence-based approach that's been shown to heal emotional and relational trauma that is a little bit more difficult to treat with talk therapy. So learning to change your emotional home from one of apathy, breaking that cycle within yourself of feeling stuck, feeling apathetic, feeling like, what's the point? Dating sucks, men suck, I don't know, I can't trust myself. Learning to program in healthier emotions, higher vibration emotions. What happens when people live like this and they're not even aware they're living like this is that they'll reach a point where it's just annoying. Life gets, they're like, it's not exciting. My life isn't exciting. My life isn't the way I want it to be. Let me go out and see if I can find someone to make me feel better. And again, most people don't wake up in the morning and declare to themselves, my life is a train wreck. I'm going to go see if I can find someone to fill that void, because logically we all know that that doesn't work. But emotionally, this is what I find most women do, who repeat their pattern again and again and again. On some level, consciously or unconsciously, they are not fully alive in themselves. They are not fully in love with their own life. And they go out in dating and relationship from a place of lack, even subconsciously. And never fails. They receive more lack in their relationships. So the biggest thing that you can do for yourself to date up is to change your emotional home. And in the beginning, this feels extremely awkward and uncomfortable because most people wait for something outside of themselves to feel joy, to feel gratitude, to feel happiness. They wait for the job promotion. They wait for that hot guy to respond to them on Tinder. They wait for, I don't know, they wait for their ex to say, hey, I missed you, I want to try again. They wait for things outside of themselves to feel happiness and to feel joy. And the work that I help my clients do is helping them feel all of those things regardless of what's going on outside, even if your life, and this is the work where even if your life is a complete shit show, that is the perfect opportunity to practice building a healthier emotional home. So that's the first thing that really needs to shift in order to date up and stop standing in quicksand and dating down or dating neutrally or getting all the wrong people. And I want to talk a little bit just quickly about, why changing your emotional home can be challenging when you've had psychological or emotional or relational trauma. Your brain becomes set, and I've talked about this in a lot of other videos, but your brain becomes rewired in a certain way so that your brain signals to your body feelings of stress, low-level feelings of stress, low-level feelings of anxiety, hypervigilance, I can't trust myself, what if I meet another narcissist? Your brain and your body get on this loop together. They're in your conscious mind is going, I really want to meet somebody healthy, but your brain, your emotion, your caveman brain, your reptilian brain, your subconscious mind, and your body are on a completely different operating system. And so it can be really challenging to just wake up in the morning and decide that you're going to be happy when you've been living the majority of your life in old programming. And so a lot of times, people will try to do this on their own. They'll watch YouTube videos, they'll listen to Facebook live streams like this, and they're like, okay, I'm going to try it on my own. And it's like, it takes more energy than that. And if you're living from a trauma response, you're already consuming a lot of your own energy, living in stress, living in anxiety, living in what if or worst case thinking. So I'm going to talk about, how to change that, working with a professional, getting the right kind of support for that here in a second. The second thing that I want to talk about to date up instead of dating down or dating neutral is learning to speak your truth the moment you feel it, upfront, right away, and unapologetically. And I call this direct communication. So one of the things that I help my clients do is balancing their attachment style. Most people have, whether they're aware of it or not, some kind of an attachment style. Secure, most people I work with don't have a secure attachment style. They have either anxious or an avoidant style. So direct communication, learning to speak what it is that's on your heart, learning to speak up about concerns, speak up about boundaries, speak up about red flags that are catching your attention. The moment you feel them, the moment you sense them, and doing it upfront and unapologetically. And I want to talk about why this is so challenging for people to do. Like on the surface, this sounds like a very simple thing to do, and in writing and looking at it, it is. But in application, it's often extremely difficult because most people, especially if you're coming out of a dysfunctional relationship, if you have a history of unfulfilling relationships, speaking your needs can oftentimes feel or trigger a sense of abandonment or rejection. It can trigger fear that you might rock the boat a little bit too much. You don't want to step on people's toes. And again, this is often a very, very ingrained subconscious belief. So again, 5%, you might logically know you need to say something and speak your truth. But if 97% of your psychology is based on your subconscious beliefs, it's very easy to slip back into an old pattern. And this is what I see a lot in my work, especially when we're at the point of change. At the point of change, it's always going to feel very uncomfortable in the beginning until you start making those different choices again and again and again. So direct communication, learning to speak your truth the moment you feel it, not dancing around it or ignoring it. I made a post earlier today about crossing your own lines and how you participate in your own progression of getting into the wrong scenario. And speaking your truth, honoring your truth, accepting the truth is one of the second biggest things, other than elevating your emotional home, to dating up, breaking a cycle of attracting the same person, same pattern, different face, learning to date up after divorce or a toxic relationship. So 2 things that you need in order to date up: elevating your emotional home, changing your emotional home, getting out of an apathetic state. And again, if you have a history of this, working with a trauma-informed expert is going to be your best bet. We all have blind spots. We all think we know logically. You can research and do all the things to arm yourself with information, but that rarely yields true transformation. And I'm speaking from personal experience. I knew everything about narcissism. I knew everything about psychopaths because that was my pattern. And it wasn't until I invested, and I had 10 years of therapy under my belt too, and I was still making the same poor choices. It wasn't until I got into trauma-informed therapy, because the wrong relationships are traumatic and it's a different healing that needs to take place, and then invested in coaching, which gave me the roadmap to get out of it. So those are the 2 things: elevating your emotional home, healing the trauma that's kind of blocking you from elevating your emotional home, and then learning to speak your truth the moment you sense it, and doing so unapologetically. And again, this is called direct communication. I use this strategy in my work with clients who have a really hard time setting boundaries, who have a pattern of codependency, of people pleasing, not just in their intimate relationships, but in virtually all of their relationships. So those are the 2 things that you need ultimately to date up instead of dating neutrally or dating down, winding up in, a similar personality trait, but it's only worse. So if you've tried everything, if you've done a lot of therapy, if you've done a lot of work on yourself, if it's been a few years, 6 months at least, since you've left a toxic relationship, and you're still not feeling where you want to be, you're still kind of stuck in the mud, you may be dating, dabbling a little bit in dating, but you're getting the wrong people, then book some time to chat. Go to bethanydotson.com/talk. We'll have a very honest conversation with you. We'll talk about, kind of your history. We'll take a really deep dive look there, and then we'll help you get very clear on the exact steps that you need personally in order to break free from that pattern once and for all for the rest of your life. So if that's you, go to bethanydotson.com/talk. So if you have any questions about this, then drop them in the comments below. If you catch this on replay, #replay, drop your questions. I would love to hear from you. I'm always open to feedback. I'm always open to learning about what you're struggling with. so that I can better serve you in this group. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and I'll talk to you later this week. Have a good one.